I've used a lot of meal services, but Hungry Root truly stands out because it's built around the way real families live and eat. They don't just send meal kits. They personalize your grocery cart and meal plan based on your preferences and dietary goals. All I had to do was take a short quiz, and right away, their smart cart technology started building a cart that fit how we eat. Now, each week feels easier, like someone else is doing the thinking for me. I've been focused on cleaner eating lately, and I love that Hungry Root keeps out over 200 additives, including things like high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. Their meats are hormone and antibiotic free, and the produce options include organic and non-GMO picks. They also stock brands I already trust, like Oatly, Vital Farms, and Harmless Harvest. One of our favorite meals has been the teriyaki salmon with green beans, light, flavorful, and done in 12 minutes flat. Plus, I've noticed we waste less food, spend less time shopping, and even save money by skipping those impulse grocery buys. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg and use code Dr. Meg. That's hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg, code Dr. Meg, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg, code Dr. Meg.
On today's episode of Parenting Great Kids.
There's that whole wine time culture, right? Very popular in parenting. And yet what we're doing is we're saying, I'm having negative emotion as a result of my kids, and mommy deserves wine because that's like, my release. Well, we're drinking to heal emotional pain. And the challenge with that is when the emotional pain gets worse, that tool is now in place and we use more of it because it takes more because it's worse.
Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. Here's your host, Dr. Meg Meeker.
Parenting is hard. We can all agree on that. But for millions of families, there's an added challenge: addiction. So today, parents, we're not going to really be talking about your kids. We're going to be talking about you and offering help for you. Today, we're joined by Nick Padlo, founder of Sophros Recovery and a former combat veteran, CEO, and addiction survivor. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think this is an important conversation for people.
It's a very important conversation because it's one of the things as a pediatrician, I deal with a lot of kids, and as I dig into some of the problems they're having, lo and behold, behind the scenes is a parent with a substance abuse issue. And often the substance abuse follows anxiety, depression, trauma, whatever. Let's talk about your transition from the military and corporate leadership to founding Sophros Recovery. Can you just tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up here in Jacksonville, Florida. And I went off, left when I was 18 to go to West Point. So really was in uniform, since I was 18, and spent a lot of my 20s in Afghanistan and Iraq. Went to business school at Stanford. Everything seemed to be tracking like in a good direction. I was running a business out of Dallas that was, a highly successful business. But unfortunately, I wasn't doing well. And I was trying to hold everything together and trying to hold the business together and trying to hold myself together. And I couldn't do it. It really caught up with me. And so, it got to the point where, I was not functional. Like my depression and anxiety were out of control. And it was at the point where, I was drinking every day. I was using drugs, and I ended up having to step down and went to treatment twice in 2018. Took me twice to get it, and that's okay. Really went on a journey. I spent 3 months in Cambodia afterwards, just living at a temple there, practicing meditation and yoga, which was awesome. I still work with my teacher every week from there. And, came back and wanted to kind of put my personal experience and combine that with my entrepreneurial hat and start something to help other people who were struggling with the same stuff I was. And, that's really where Sophros came from, was out of that that personal experience of like, really, how do we make this better for people? How do we make it more accessible?
It's so important. Now, so you went to West Point. When you were at West Point, did you feel anxiety, depression, pressure? What was that like for you? Because that's a pretty intense school.
Yeah, I thrived.
You did,
I
huh?
didn't. Yeah, I thrived. It was funny because I wouldn't say that discipline is in my nature. Like structure and discipline aren't in my nature. But if someone else does that for me, I can perform at a very high level. I didn't know that until West Point. I did well in high school. Like I did well,
Mhm,
well enough to get into West Point, but like just barely,
mhm, mhm.
And everyone always says, "Oh, you get there, you're going to make C's." Like I did great. It was like my
Yeah,
zone,
yeah.
and so, it wasn't really until after I lost a lot of that structure after getting out of the military that I'm like, how do I operate on my own
Mhm.
without somebody telling me what to do? And so I had to kind of figure that out. And I didn't do it in the easiest of ways. And so I don't know if that, I mean, it's probably one of many factors that contributed to my later struggles. Um, but really there, I did well under that environment for whatever reason.
Now, when did you feel that your unraveling began? Was it when you went to Afghanistan? Was it when you came home? Where did that really start?
Yeah, for me, it was really more about relationships. I think there was a part of it that was coming out of the military and figuring out who I was in this world, defining what my values meant to me. Like I didn't really know. I had the army values, but what do those mean in the civilian world? But a big part of it was that I was, had a divorce, and for me, I had always kind of done well at things, and I really prided myself on that. Like I was my resume. I was my list of accomplishments and my successes, and that was what made me good enough. And when I failed at something that was really important to me, my worldview kind of came apart. And, I had been drinking at the time, but, I would say I was like a moderate to heavy drinker. But then when that happened, I started to really drink to cope.
Yeah.
It wasn't about having fun anymore. It was more about like not feeling and avoiding negative emotions. And
Mhm.
that's when it really got into trouble. And I always tell people, like, we have these things, these sayings like, take the edge off, right? I have a drink when I get home to take the edge off. Well, I'm drinking to heal emotional pain when I do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's small. This
Yeah.
pain is small, but I'm drinking to heal emotional pain. I'm not drinking for fun. I'm drinking to heal emotional pain. When we talk about mommy wine time,
Yeah.
there's that whole wine time culture, right? Very popular in parenting. And yet what we're doing is we're saying, I'm having negative emotion as a result of my kids, and mommy deserves wine because that's like, my release. Well, we're drinking to heal emotional pain. And the challenge with that is when the emotional pain gets worse, that tool is now in place and we use more of it because it takes more because it's worse. And
Right.
so that's really where mine started to spiral. Was I took that emotional tool and I needed more of it because the emotions were more, and then it got a hold of itself.
I think you're talking to a lot of business people here because you said, you were your resume. And I think that for many people who take their work outside the home or, wherever, seriously, you take your work on, you become that, and it doesn't work because it doesn't make relationships work. So, but I think that a lot of parents who are very busy, they feel a lot of pressure. They're juggling a lot of balls. They feel they need to perform here. They need to perform here. I see the tension, the anxiety in both mothers and fathers, particularly those who work outside the home and they're trying to parent in the home. It's too much. I mean, it's just too much, and they're overwhelmed. And that's what their default is. They come home and they have a couple glasses of wine or beer, and maybe they don't feel depressed or maybe they don't feel anxious, but talk about what is it inside of them that feels they need to drink? Is it just they're trying to do too much? Is it stress that makes them drink? Is it a mood disorder?
I think, I don't want to oversimplify it, but I don't want to overcomplicate it. I think, physiologically, there's something that's to be said there. So right now, when we're working and we're parenting and we're doing all of these things, like we're running at a very high speed and we don't have that much time to relax, right? And so it takes us a while to go from that ramp up to down where we feel relaxed. Alcohol, and some drugs as well, but alcohol specifically speeds up that process, right? It speeds up the time between a lot of, we don't even anxiety, but a lot of cortisol, whatever it might be. It speeds it up and allows you to get to a relaxed state faster. That's the bonus, right? The downside is that it then increases that feeling for the next time. So if you look at like all the neuroscience of addiction, what it does is it does get you down faster, but then your baseline resets higher. And so this is even with a couple drinks a day, and so your baseline of stress and tension resets higher. Well, now maybe you need 2.5 drinks instead of 2. Maybe that pour is a little heavier. Right. And so that can be a really slippery slope when we start using that tool. And now you really need it to be able to reset because you only got 2 hours. There's no way you're going to get from your high baseline now to a place where you feel relaxed in a short period of time. And so that's one of the big pieces of it. And there's also a piece of like, I deserve it. I deserve to be able to feel relaxed. And you do. But the challenge is that alcohol only works for a short period of time. And then the next time it's going to take a little more to be relaxed and your baseline is going to be a little higher and it can go down very fast.
How do you, or is it possible, how do you prevent this from coming? It's interesting. You say that you practice meditation and that's been very helpful for you. But for the parent who's listening to us and said, my days are crazy. I'm exhausted when I go to bed. I'm just running around trying to keep up with everything. What would you say to that parent right now? Because clearly their lifestyle looks like they are at risk for drinking too much. What would you tell them to do right now if they're crazy busy and they're at risk?
So it's hard to hear, but the reality is, you have to do some self-care. You have to, right? I don't have time for self-care. The number of times I hear that, I don't have time for treatment, I don't have time for self-care, all these things, I hear it all the time. But like the reality is like, you don't have time not to, right? Because you operating 18 hours a day between your work and your parenting responsibilities is not effective. It's not, right? You operating 16 hours a day at 100% is far more effective. 14 hours a day at 100%, 12 hours a day at 100% is far more effective than you trying to squeeze every last hour of the day. And so I'm not telling you that you wake up, in a perfect utopia, you wake up every morning, you go for a 4-mile walk, you meditate, it'd be great. It'd be wonderful. Right? I would like to do that. I wish I could. But I could do 5 minutes of meditation before I grab my phone or attend to duties in the morning. I can take 30 seconds 5 times a day and do a little meditation to myself, right? I can take 20 minutes off and like listen to a podcast that's healthy for me. Maybe I eliminate some social media. There's something I can eliminate, right? Or you just eliminate a little time on those duties, right? A little less time at work, a little less time with your kids. And you're doing that because that allows you to be more focused in the time that you have. And you being at 100% or 80% or 60% is so much better than you being present for an extra hour. And not functional.
Right. Do you think that our busyness that leads to drinking or could lead to drinking is about running from our pain and our distress?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that, right? And we say, oh, well, like I'm not running from anything, but like, do you feel fully comfortable? Are you running toward this like kind of comfort that maybe you don't feel in the rest of your life? It doesn't have to be depression or anxiety. It might just be tension. It might just be a little too much stress for me to want to carry right now. Right. And so I'm looking for an out. And, I can't emphasize enough how short term that out is. And how it makes everything harder. I always say, in recovery, I always say, there isn't a problem in my life that I can't make worse by drinking.
Right.
And it's the same thing. There isn't enough tension in the day that I can't make it more by drinking, which is exactly what happens after day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. And we're talking about 1 to 2 glasses at this point when you look at the neuroscience. It's not, it might be, I mean, it can be 10 as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a couple a day is shown to have massive effects on the nervous system and our ability to have a good baseline to be able to handle all these responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. You know, it may feel great at the time. You're calm, you're relaxed, and then boy, it bites you in the back when it's done. I mean, it can disrupt your sleep and so forth. Let's talk about recovery. What are the biggest obstacles that keep people from getting help and to say, okay, I need to go into a place, I need to get some help to recover from a bad habit. Well, I won't call it that, from an addiction. First of all, how do people know they're addicted?
Yeah. So I think that's a good question. Like, how do I know if I have a problem?
Mm-hmm.
I hear that a lot. I will tell you that no one that doesn't have a problem ever asks themselves that question.
Okay,
Like,
say
people
that
that
again.
don't have a problem don't ever ask themselves, I wonder if I have a problem.
Got it. Okay.
It's
Oh,
not
right.
something that normal
Okay.
people do,
Okay.
you know? And so if you're saying, I wonder if I have a problem, like, the answer is yes.
Yes.
If someone else is saying to you, you might be drinking too much, you have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't have any question in my mind. Now, you might say, well, I'm not an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what you call it. It doesn't matter to me. This all exists on a spectrum, right?
Right.
And so, even if you don't even want to say you have a problem, okay, that's fine. We don't need to even say that. What we can say is that, would I be more healthy and happy if this thing weren't in my life?
Mm.
And if the answer to that is yes, which I think it is for most people that regularly use alcohol or drugs,
Mm-hmm.
then it's time to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it's so challenging for people to say, I might be an alcoholic, or I do have a problem, or whatever these other things are, is because we're stigmatizing it ourselves.
Right.
We're stigmatizing ourselves, right? I don't want to be an alcoholic because an alcoholic is that guy under the bridge.
Right.
That's the alcoholic. I'm not an alcoholic. I have a job.
Mm-hmm.
I take care of my family. I live in a golf course community, right? Okay. Yeah, true. I had all the things in the world and I was a terrible alcoholic, right? I wasn't ready to admit it then either. But once I did, or once I at least admitted that, like, hey, I need to do something about this, now I can start making sustainable change, and that's, I mean, people ask me all the time, you think you're drinking too much? No, I just drink a little bit each night, it's not like, just take the edge off. But I had a problem.
So what percent of people seek help and recovery on their own versus the percent of people that are pushed in there by a loved one? Are there many people that just go, gosh, I need help, I'm going to go to Sophros? Or is it usually they're getting some push from family or friends?
So women are better about it than men in general. I see more women that come on their own. Men are often pushed by their wife or significant other, or mother. And so I think there's there's kind of this other embedded, reluctance of men to seek therapy. So I think we're a little more reluctant. But I would say, at least 50% come because someone else is encouraging them to come. And, in addiction, and in recovery, there are certain, kind of beliefs that I believe are wrong. And one of those is you can't get well if you don't want it for yourself.
Oh,
I don't believe that.
Really? That's interesting because I've always heard that and believed it. I deal with girls with eating disorders, and my sense is if they're not ready and they don't want to, it's hard to work with them. So talk about how you help an addicted person reform or recover if other people want them to do it. How does that work?
So there's a model called the stages of change model. And in the stages of change model, you have things like pre-contemplation, contemplation, action, and it's kind of like where you are. And the further along you are in that cycle, the better your chance of success. So I'm not saying that I'll kind of give a nuance to what I said, which was like kind of a bold statement, which is that I don't care what gets you in the door. You might be in the door because of legal trouble. You might be in the door because your wife is saying she's going to divorce you. Your husband's saying he's going to divorce you if you don't get this together. Like whatever brings you to the place, like that's okay. At some point, you're going to have to want it for yourself.
Yeah.
I've had so many parents say, Dr. Meg, my child is bright, but they're struggling in school and I don't know what to do. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. And that's why I'm excited to share K-12 powered schools with you. K-12 offers tuition-free, accredited online public education for grades K through 12. These programs let kids learn at their own pace with built-in flexibility that supports different learning styles and family needs. And unlike homeschooling, K-12 provides certified teachers who guide your child's education online. The lessons are engaging, the technology is hands-on, and your child gets real opportunities to connect with clubs, extracurriculars, and even in-person events. As a mom, a grandmother, and a pediatrician, I know how powerful it is when education meets your child's needs instead of the other way around. So if you're looking for something different, something better, go to k12.com/Dr. Meg and find a tuition-free K-12 powered school near you. That's k12.com/DRMEG, all caps. Some days, parenting feels like chasing moments that never quite land. You ask a question, they shrug. You try again, they look at their screen. And you wonder, why is this so hard? That's why I love FamGabs. It's a 70-card deck created by a child therapist who spent 16 years working directly with families, helping parents and kids break through the awkward one-word answers and really connect. The questions are open-ended, thoughtfully chosen, and designed to get your child talking and keep the conversation going. There are even bonus cards just for parents to help you build your confidence in your connection toolbox. If you've ever wished for a better way to understand your child or just to have more meaningful conversations as a family, FamGabs is such a gift. Search FamGabs on Amazon and use promo code Dr. Meg Pod during checkout to get 10% off your order. That's FamGabs on Amazon. Use promo code Dr. Meg Pod and get 10% off your order.
What you do have to have the willingness to do is to explore.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have the willingness to get sober and be sober for the rest of your life. Like, that's a big ask of anybody, especially someone in active addiction. Hey, I'm never going to drink again. And it's like, if someone tells you that and you're an active addict, you can never have another drink again for the rest of your life. You're going to buck that, And so we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is like, are you willing to do some introspection? Are you willing to like try to be a better person for your wife or significant other? And then are you willing to do some introspection to figure out what this might mean for you? Mm-hmm. If you're willing to do that, like, I think we can work with you, and I think the programs of, AA and NA and SMART, like those can work with you too. And so can a treatment center, but you've got to be willing to give it some effort. And, eventually you have to be willing to kind of surrender to the process, but you don't have to be willing on day one.
So I am 49. I work hard. I have a great job outside the home. I have 3 kids. We're really busy. I'm married. But I'm having a hard time handling it. And my husband says, I think you need help with your drinking. I say, okay. I go to Sophros. Then what happens?
Yeah. So, we'll have an initial conversation. We'll start to understand like quantitatively what this looks like in your life. And then qualitatively, like, how is this affecting you, your mood, your physical health? What's going on? Like, let's really understand what's going on. And then, what we do, and this is not just us, this is, a good treatment center. We do what's called PHP and IOP. So PHP is a full day with us, Monday through Friday. You don't live here. And then IOP is like 3 hours a day, 4 days a week with, flexible hours. But what you're going to do is you're going to learn a set of tools and skills that can help you to be more effective in life and with all of life's stuff, without leaning on this crutch. And so my goal is that we're not going to tell you, like, you can't have your, treat, right? Or your tool. I need that tool. That alcohol is my tool. I need that tool. Okay. I can't just take it away from you and expect you to be successful. I've got to give you other tools. We've got to learn other things that allow our body and our nervous system to get back to that place and hopefully to a better place. And then you start to see that it's working for you. And that's all done through like group therapy, individual therapy, sometimes medicine, but a combination of all these different tools that say, man, I need to learn how to be more effective in relationships, like communicating with my partner, because part of what I'm drinking on is this stress that I'm having with my partner, right? And so I've got to make that relationship more healthy so that I have less reason. I've got to learn how to be more present in the moment, through mindfulness. I've got to learn how to, reframe these negative thoughts that are in my head. So it's not just one thing, but it's like, we need to kind of revamp all these things we didn't learn in school, which I would argue are kind of like some of the core fundamentals. We've got to learn those. And it's a blessing to be able to learn those. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wish I hadn't had to become an alcoholic to get it, but the tools and skills I have now are so much different than what I ever got in undergrad or grad school.
Oh, absolutely. So how important is it for a person in recovery to be able to identify the reason they started drinking, or is it not important? For instance, say you had some childhood trauma, okay, and you never recovered from it. I mean, I see this, and you grow up and you get married and you have these, and all of a sudden you start drinking and you crash.
Yeah.
Is it important for that person to go back and go, here was the trauma, here was the starting point, or I don't know, or can they just pick up and move forward?
It's a blend.
Okay.
I don't think there's a straightforward answer. I think some things you really need to get to the root of. It's kind of like, you can keep your front yard without weeds if you go out with scissors every day and you clip them, which is, if you're very diligent about clipping, you can keep them clipped, right?
Right.
Also, you could go and like get them out by the root, and then, occasionally spray some things on the lawn for maintenance and like do some of that work. It's a lot easier. I think there are a lot of things we do need to get to the root of. We need to understand, maybe not exactly. I think some people can become obsessed with it and like really understanding why. And the other trap that we fall into is, if I understand why I drank to excess, I can fix that. And now I can drink normally again. So that's it. And it's just not true.
Okay. I was going to say, is that true or is it not true? I was trying to figure out for you, Nancy. Okay.
So everyone thinks they're the one, right? They can do that. Every single person who's ever gone through this process has thought they were the one. And maybe someone out there listening is the one. In 3 years of being in addiction treatment and in more years than that of being in the recovery process, I have never met the one out of thousands that can go back to being a casual drinker once they've solved their mental health issues or underlying issues. And that's because these are concurrent processes, right? So we have our mental health and we have our alcohol intake. We'll use alcohol as an example. And so we're drinking to fix this, and then this is getting worse, and we're drinking to fix this, and this is getting worse. At a certain point with this, once alcohol has become a problem, there is a change in your neural pathways in your brain where alcohol has learned to take a certain route. And that route can go dormant over time. And as soon as we start drinking moderately again, it blows up to a superhighway. And so there's a neurological change that happens in our brain, so that once we have now untied and fixed the underlying systemic issue, we still can't go back because that neurology in our brain has changed. And it's more complex than that, but that's the simplest explanation. So yes, we need to figure out why. We can't figure out why with the hopes that if we solve it, we can go back. And we can't become obsessed with the why. But we need to treat some of our major triggers and underlying things.
I appreciate that, because there's a sense sometimes that I've had, I don't know where it came from, that if you can find the reason you started drinking and the pain, and you can resolve that pain, then you can drink whatever you want. And you're saying, can't do that.
I've just never seen it happen. And everybody thinks they're the one, and nobody's been the
They're
one
not.
yet.
Let's talk about community. How important is community in the recovery process, and what does the community look like?
So we always say that the opposite of addiction is connection, not abstinence. And so this need for fundamental human connection, healthy human connection, and this need for having a support system of other people that understand us is one of the key components to recovery. It's one of the things that makes it possible. I have tried to do recovery on my own and to be abstinent and not work a program and not have connection, and I have relapsed. And so what I have found is that, like, I attend AA meetings, I attend smart recovery meetings. People say, oh, I don't like those meetings. Like, there's a lot of things I don't like, but I really don't like being in active addiction. So I'm going to just do my meetings. So I, for example, go to 4 meetings a week. I talk to my sponsor twice a week. The reason I was a couple minutes late to this call was because I was on with my sponsor. And so, I call other alcoholics, like we talk on the phone. My fiance is in recovery as well. And so, I have this infrastructure that's there to support me. And when things get tough, I hope that I have enough tools and skills to be successful without them. The reality is that there will be times when I won't, and I need to lean on others for that support, because that's one of my tools, I guess you could say. So I guess I do have the tools, but that's one of the tools. And I just find it, if I don't go to a meeting today or tomorrow, I'm probably not going to go drink. It's not going to happen. However, if I don't go to a meeting today or tomorrow, will I be as fit condition mentally and spiritually as I would have been otherwise? Maybe not. Will I snap? Am I 5% more likely to snap at my fiance? Maybe, and so those things make me a better person. And, I'm thankful that I have to do them.
Now, I'm 49. I've gone to Sophros, or I'm going through it. I've got some kids and I've got a job. This sounds really time consuming to me. And I just don't have that time. We talked about this earlier.
No.
So do I need to stop my job and go through this, or can I incorporate it into my daily living? And if so, it feels like it's going to put me over the edge. What would you say to a person like that?
Yeah, we hear this all the time. Right. And, from a treatment standpoint, whether or not you go to treatment, right? I can't go to treatment right now. I've got my kids. It's summer break coming up. I can't, because the kids are going to be home. And like, what I tell people is, like, the cost to your children of you continuing to fight this is lifelong. They may never get past this. They will get past if you're gone for 3 weeks, though.
Right.
But they will survive. And now they're going to have a healthy mother, a healthy father, potentially for the rest of their life, someone who's an example of how to overcome a major challenge in their life, someone who, if they start to struggle, you can share your experience, strength, and hope with them. Like, the value of that and the type of superhero that you can become if you do whatever it takes to get well for them and to be healthy for them, like, it's a lifelong blessing, and the opposite, the risk that you run, we call them the yets. So often people will say, I don't really need treatment right now. I've never gotten a DUI. My kids are doing well. You haven't gotten a DUI yet.
Right.
You haven't lost your kids yet. You haven't gotten a divorce yet. You haven't lost your job yet. It will happen.
Yeah.
If you're struggling. Everyone that it's ever happened to thought it could never happen to them. Right. And yeah, so go ahead.
And as a pediatrician who hears the other side, which is the kid's side, and I will tell parents, even a young child knows when you've been drinking. And a lot of parents say, no, they don't know. Yes, they do. Older kids, 9, 10, 11, they can tell exactly how many drinks you've had. When a parent has been drinking, it's terrifying for kids because they look at a parent and go, my parent isn't really here with me. I mean, I see them, but if I were in trouble, they couldn't put me in the car and drive me to a hospital or a friend's house. They're not available to put me to bed, or maybe they are, but I don't trust them because they're not their whole real self. And I just really want to say to parents out there, your kids are so dialed into you and they have to have their needs met by you. And if you've been drinking just a little bit, it can be crushing to your kids. And any parent out there who grew up as a child of an alcoholic knows that. So before we go, we only have a couple of minutes and I have way too many questions to ask you. Is your approach a one size fits all, or do you sort of say, well, this person's needs are like this, or this person's needs are like that, or there's specific issues that parents have that you need to attend, or is it all kind of the same for everybody?
It's a hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
So within the kind of, recovery toolkit, there will be certain tools that everyone needs at different times. So I almost look at it like a liberal arts education in some ways, where at first you have to take a broad-based curriculum in math and science and English and whatever. You need to have a broad-based curriculum in relationships and trauma and emotions and mindfulness. Like, you need to have a little bit of tools in each one of these because life is going to throw things at you where those tools are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have something that's individualized that says, hey, here are my biggest problems. Let's work through those. Right. And a lot of those revolve around family and kids because that's really where we're at. And so, I would say that it's a hybrid of both. There are certain things that you're going to learn that you need to learn in recovery. And then there are also things where, hey, this is specific to me. I need to address this trauma. I need to fix this relationship. I need to learn how to balance my time so that I feel like I'm fulfilled and my kids are fulfilled in what I'm providing for them. Mm-hmm. So there is part of it that's broad-based, that I need this set of tools and skills. And there's part of it that's individualized that says, I need to specifically target this.
Hmm. Biggest lesson, this is a loaded question, that you have learned, think about yourself at West Point and think about yourself now. What are the one or two biggest lessons that you've learned about yourself?
Oh, man, that's a good one.
I would just like to know.
Yeah. So, I'm not a superhero. I think I grew up wanting to be one when I was a kid. And then I was in the Army and I thought I was, I'm just a guy. Yeah. I'm just a guy that has my own wants and needs, and I can make an impact on this world and I can make an impact on people. And I need to work on myself constantly. And in doing so, I'm able to be there for others. Yeah, I hate to use that analogy of, put your oxygen mask on first. But it really is true. It's true.
It's
and
true.
I never believed
parents
that.
Don't. Yeah. We put our oxygen mask on our kids. Yeah.
I believed in self-sacrifice. I'll do whatever to, and the reality is it's not the most effective long run. It's not the most effective for parents long run, and so that's one thing I've learned. And then I think in recovery, I've learned that nothing changes if nothing changes. Mm-hmm. It's a cliche, but it's so important. And it's, what that meant for me was that I had to change my thoughts, behaviors, and actions. I had to change the place where I lived. I had to change the people, places, and things that were around me. I had to change the way I think. I had to change the way I act. There was a lot I had to change. And so if you're out there and you're like, kind of feel like you're limping along at 60%, like nothing's going to change if nothing changes. Trying harder will get you to 62%. And then you're going to drop down at 58 because you're burned out. You're going to float along and you're going to be bobbing in the ocean for a very long time. Or we could do something and get you a boat. And so now you're floating comfortably. It's possible. Millions of people have figured it out, and millions more have just continued to struggle at 60% for their entire lives, and it doesn't have to be you.
That sounds like you're talking to people who even aren't addicts.
Sure.
I'm not right now. If I have an addiction, it's sugar. I mean, it's bad, bad, bad. And I've given sugar up for Lent, and so far I'm doing okay a week into it, but it's hard. But you're really talking about things everybody needs the boat, because a lot of us just bob. I'm a bobber, and I know that. And anyway, whole new discussion. Today, my guest has been Nick Padlo. He's the founder of Sophros Recovery. This is a hyper-performing guy who has really had a dramatic life change. And I love hearing about how different you are from when you're at West Point, because you've learned so much about life. Thank you for joining me. And how can people find out more about Sophros?
The easiest way is just to go online, sophrosrecovery.com, SOPHROS recovery.com. And we've got all of our phone numbers, all of our resources. And if anyone is struggling out there, even if we can't help, we will continue working until we find you a place that can.
I love it. I love it. So people don't need to feel intimidated. They can call and ask any question without having come to the point they know, well, I'm an addict, I need Sophros. They can just call and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. Well, Nick, thank you so much for doing what you do. This is a critically important topic. And as one who is a child advocate, it's extremely important for parents to take their health, their physical, mental health, really important, because it's going to make a big difference in your kids' life. So blessings in what you do, and keep up the great work. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Are you curious about the PGK Insider? Try it for free today. You have nothing to lose. I've packed this membership with the best parenting resources I've developed over the past 20 years. Courses, videos, live webinars, and more. You don't have to commit right away. Just explore it, enjoy it, and see if it will support you and your needs. Parenting is hard, but you don't have to do it alone. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't do it alone. If you need encouragement, go to meekerparenting.com. And remember, parents, until next time, great kids are raised, not born.